What if I told you that Rick and Morty's biggest joke is actually its darkest secret? Morty Smith isn't just a sidekick, he's a victim of the multiverse's most elaborate psychological torture experiment. Rick Sanchez has killed his grandson's soul 8 times over, each death more brutal than the last. These aren't just adventures gone wrong, they're calculated destructions of a child's psyche, designed to create the perfect companion. Today, we expose the 8 times Morty died without dying, and why Rick orchestrated every single one. The Cronenberg Dimension incident marks the precise moment Morty Smith's childhood ended. In Rick Potion No. 9, Season 1, Episode 6, Rick's love potion transforms Earth's entire population into writhing, flesh-twisted monsters through a chain reaction of genetic manipulation. The potion spreads like a virus, converting humans into grotesque hybrids of mantis DNA, then further mutating them into formless creatures of pure biological horror. Rick's solution reveals his true nature. Instead of fixing the mistake, he locates Dimension C-131, where alternate versions of themselves have just died in a perfectly timed explosion. Morty watches Rick scan through infinite realities like TV channels, searching for a convenient replacement home. The selection criteria is simple. Find a world where they're freshly dead and the family remains intact. The burial scene operates as psychological warfare. Morty's hands shake as he drags his own corpse across the garage floor. The body is still warm, the face identical to his own. Rick forces him to dig the grave, pour the concrete, and construct the lie that will define his remaining existence. Every shovelful of dirt represents another piece of Morty's original identity being buried forever. Living with his new family becomes an exercise in constant deception. This Beth never carried him for 9 months. This Jerry never taught him to ride a bike. This Summer never shared his actual childhood memories. Morty must perfectly imitate a dead boy's life while knowing his real family remains trapped in a dimension of writhing horror. In Close Rick Counters of the Rick Kind, Season 1, Episode 10, the Citadel of Ricks reveals the industrial scale of Morty exploitation. Thousands of Ricks maintain thousands of Mortys as biological cloaking devices. The science is brutally simple. Morty's brainwaves emit a specific frequency that cancels out Rick's genius-level neural patterns, rendering him invisible to enemies. Rick literally uses his grandson's stupidity as a shield. Evil Rick's brain scanner exposes buried memories that Rick C-137 desperately wanted hidden. The machine projects a rapid succession of traumatic moments. Morty convulsing from electrical shocks, crying while strapped to experimental devices, and begging Rick to stop various procedures. These aren't accidents or adventures gone wrong. They're deliberate tests to optimize Morty's brainwave output. The Council of Ricks treats Mortys like office supplies. They maintain warehouses full of replacement Mortys, sorted by dimension and compatibility ratings. The voucher system operates like a warranty program. One defective Morty can be exchanged for a fresh model, no questions asked. Rick pockets his voucher with the casual indifference of someone keeping a coupon for laundry detergent. The emotional maturity clause represents the darkest aspect of the Rick-Morty dynamic. Documentation clearly states that Mortys become incompatible with Rick technology once they develop beyond a certain psychological threshold. Their brainwaves change frequency as they mature, losing their cloaking properties. This creates a perverse incentive. Rick must keep Morty traumatized, confused, and emotionally stunted to maintain his usefulness. The Morty insurance policy includes specific provisions for psychological maintenance. Regular exposure to existential horror prevents emotional growth. Constant belittlement maintains low self-esteem. Intermittent praise creates dependency. The entire relationship is engineered to produce a permanently damaged child who generates the perfect camouflage frequency. Morty isn't just disposable, he's designed to stay broken. The Roy simulator represents Rick's most insidious form of psychological manipulation in episode Morty Night Run, Season 2, Episode 2. When Morty questions the morality of selling antimatter weapons to an assassin, Rick doesn't argue or explain. He simply erases Morty's objections by forcing him to live another person's entire life. The machine's neural interface overwrites Morty's consciousness with Roy's memories, experiences, and identity. Inside the simulation, Morty experiences every moment of Roy's existence in real time. He feels the awkwardness of Roy's first day at school, the excitement of his first kiss, the mundane rhythm of selling carpets for decades. He marries, has children, watches them grow up. He develops back problems, loses hair, gains weight. The simulation includes physical sensations, the ache of aging joints, the taste of birthday cake at his 50th birthday party, the smell of carpet samples in his store. The psychological aftermath is devastating. Morty retains all 55 years of Roy's memories layered on top of his 14-year-old consciousness. He remembers Roy's wife more clearly than his own mother. He knows the names of carpet manufacturers better than his school subjects. His brain struggles to process which life is real, creating a dissociative state where he exists simultaneously as a teenager and an elderly man. This temporal violation serves Rick's purpose perfectly. When Morty emerges from the game, his moral certainty has evaporated. His attempt to save Fart leads directly to accidentally stepping on Crumbopulous Michael, crushing the assassin's skull. The wet crunch of breaking bone becomes another trauma, but Morty's brain, still reeling from 5 decades of false memories, can barely process the horror. He's learned Rick's intended lesson. Moral action leads to chaos, and the only safety lies in emotional numbness. The Purge planet represents Rick's deliberate weaponization of Morty's capacity for violence. In episode Look Who's Purging Now, Season 2, Episode 9, Rick times their arrival perfectly, ensuring they're stranded during the annual festival of sanctioned murder. The planet's inhabitants transform from peaceful farmers into bloodthirsty killers the moment the bell tolls, wielding farm tools as weapons while wearing disturbing wooden masks. Rick orchestrates Morty's emotional investment by introducing Arthricia, a young woman who appears to need rescue. Morty's protective instincts activate immediately. She reminds him of Jessica, of normalcy, of the life he might have had. When armed purgers corner them in a lighthouse, Morty has no escape route. Rick has engineered the perfect psychological trap: kill or watch an innocent die. The transformation happens in real time. Morty's first kill is defensive, a desperate swing of an improvised weapon that caves in a purger's skull. But something breaks inside him with that first death. The suppressed rage from countless humiliations, buried trauma, and stolen years erupts. He doesn't just defend himself, he becomes an engine of destruction. Blood sprays across his face as he methodically eliminates threats, his movements becoming increasingly efficient and brutal. The aftermath reveals the true horror. Morty stands among dozens of corpses covered in gore, breathing heavily. His hands shake not from fear but from adrenaline withdrawal. He's discovered he's exceptionally good at killing, a natural talent he never wanted to possess. Rick's casual dismissal of the experience as purging some stuff demonstrates his calculated indifference. He's successfully converted Morty's innocence into combat effectiveness, creating a more useful tool while destroying another piece of the child who once worried about homework and school dances. In Episode 10, Season 2, The Wedding Squanchers, Season 2, Episode 10, the Federation's manhunt transforms the Smith family into intergalactic fugitives. They drift between hostile planets, sleeping in the ship, eating alien rations while Federation drones scan every inhabited world. Morty watches his mother's deteriorating mental state as she clings to hope that Rick will protect them. Her hands shake when she thinks no one's looking. She stares at old family photos on her phone until the battery dies. Morty's ultimatum emerges from pure desperation. He corners Rick in the ship's cargo hold, voice breaking as he delivers his threat. The words carry the weight of Rick Prime's original abandonment, the defining trauma that shaped Beth's entire life. Morty weaponizes his mother's deepest wound, knowing it's the only leverage that might keep Rick from disappearing into the multiverse. Rick's decision to surrender happens in calculated stages. He contacts the Federation, negotiates terms that guarantee his family's safety, and arranges for their return to Earth. When the Federation ships arrive, Rick walks toward them with uncharacteristic calm. He doesn't say goodbye, he doesn't look back. The arrest plays out like a funeral, with Morty realizing too late that his emotional manipulation has triggered this outcome. The guilt manifests physically in Morty's behavior. He stops eating properly, spends hours staring at Rick's empty garage, and flinches whenever his mother mentions her father. He replays the conversation obsessively, wondering if different words might have changed the outcome. The successful return to normalcy feels like a betrayal. They're safe because Morty forced Rick to sacrifice his freedom. This psychological burden reshapes their relationship forever. Morty learns that his emotional needs have catastrophic costs. His attempt to protect his mother results in losing his grandfather. The guilt becomes another layer of trauma, teaching him that expressing vulnerability leads directly to abandonment. Morty's Mind-Blower's vault, shown in Season 3, Episode 8, contains hundreds of glowing vials, each holding memories Rick surgically removed from Morty's brain. The color-coding system reveals Rick's psychological manipulation framework. Red vials contain Morty's failures, purple stores existential revelations, blue holds moments of intellectual triumph, and black archives memories that would cause complete mental collapse. Rick's curation strategy targets specific psychological developments. He systematically removes memories where Morty demonstrates agency, questions fundamental reality, or approaches emotional breakthrough. The archived memories include Morty discovering he's the 15th replacement, realizing Rick orchestrated his parents' marriage, and solving complex equations before Rick could complete them. Each restored memory assaults Morty's consciousness with suppressed trauma. He experiences alien parasites eating through his corneas, watches himself commit accidental genocide, and discovers his entire school consists of surveillance robots. The memories stack exponentially, creating psychological damage that compounds with each revelation. The archive section delivers the final blow, dozens of vials labeled with serial numbers from previous Mortys. C-137, D-99, J-19. Zeta-7 represent discarded predecessors whose memories Rick preserved as reference material. Morty stands surrounded by the preserved suffering of his past iterations, understanding finally that his personality is a manufactured product, carefully edited to maintain optimal functionality for Rick's purposes. The spaghetti revelation unfolds with calculated horror. In episode That's a Morte, Season 7, Episode 3. Morty watches Rick scoop steaming pasta directly from a split-open torso, the deceased person's face frozen in peaceful expression. The biological process is grotesquely efficient. Specific beings on Planet 41. Kepler B produce perfect spaghetti upon death, but only if they die by suicide while experiencing contentment. Rick harvests this delicacy with the casual indifference of someone picking tomatoes. Morty's moral outrage leads to catastrophic consequences. His exposure of the practice doesn't end it. Instead, it creates a galactic industry. Corporations establish suicide farms where beings are psychologically manipulated into achieving the exact emotional state required for premium pasta production. Advertising campaigns promote dying for flavor. Stock markets trade in misery futures. Morty's attempt at ethical intervention transforms isolated tragedy into systematic exploitation. The guilt crushes Morty's remaining moral framework. He watches news reports of suicide statistics skyrocketing across multiple planets, each death directly traceable to his intervention. Families destroyed, civilizations corrupted, all because he couldn't accept Rick's compartmentalized amorality. The weight of countless deaths bears down on his conscience. His final vow to Rick represents complete moral surrender. Kneeling in the garage, tears streaming, Morty swears on his pathetic little soul to never question Rick's methods again. The oath isn't just words, it's a fundamental abdication of ethical autonomy. Morty agrees to become willfully blind to atrocity, choosing ignorance over the unbearable burden of moral responsibility. Rick's punishment for a stolen phone charger demonstrates his capacity for disproportionate psychological warfare. The simulation prison shown in episode Summer of All Fears, Season 8, Episode 1, operates on accelerated time. Every minute in reality equals months inside the digital hellscape. Morty experiences 17 subjective years of confinement, aging mentally from 14 to 31, while his physical body remains unchanged. The simulation's environment maximizes psychological degradation. Morty exists in a featureless void with basic survival challenges that grow progressively harder. He must fight digital constructs for food, solve increasingly complex puzzles for water, and defend against attacks that become more vicious over time. The isolation is absolute. No human contact, no conversation, only the endless cycle of survival and combat. 17 years of constant vigilance rewires Morty's neural pathways completely. He develops hypervigilance, scanning empty rooms for threats. His hands shake from muscle memory of countless battles. Sleep becomes impossible without nightmares of digital enemies. The teenage boy who entered the simulation no longer exists. Only a battle-hardened survivor remains. Upon release, Morty exhibits textbook PTSD symptoms. Loud noises trigger combat responses. He hoards food obsessively. His 1,000-yard stare reflects decades of trauma compressed into his adolescent brain. Rick dismisses the transformation with a shrug, calling it a learning experience, while Morty struggles to remember what normal human interaction feels like after nearly 2 decades of programmed violence. In conclusion, what begins as absurd comedy slowly reveals itself as one of television's most devastating psychological studies. Beneath the portals, clones, and interdimensional gags lies a consistent pattern of emotional destruction, a slow-motion erosion of a boy's humanity disguised as sci-fi adventure. The evidence is overwhelming. Morty Smith exists in perpetual psychological torment, accumulating trauma with every episode. Rick systematically destroys his innocence through calculated abuse, forcing him to bury his own corpse, live false lives, commit violence, and surrender his moral autonomy. This resilience transforms victimhood into tragic heroism. While other Mortys break or become monsters, this Morty metabolizes suffering into strength. His scars become armor, his stolen innocence becomes wisdom. In a chaotic multiverse that demands survivors, not children, being the Mortiest Morty isn't a curse, it's evolution. Morty Smith died 8 times to become what the universe needs: unbreakable.